at the fragile seam between night's fatigue and dawn's first glimmer. You sense how yesterday's concerns left you hollow, an empty place longing for a new fountain to rise within. The pale sky whispers that fresh strength is already stirring. Yet you hesitate, unsure which voice to follow toward trustworthy guidance. Still, the God who never slumbers stands nearer than breath, ready to kindle gratitude that will overflow and make you a living witness of hope. Those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their power. See Isaiah 40:31. God's promise of lifted wings assures you that depletion is not the final word. What weight from yesterday presses hardest on your chest? Which desire still aches for His touch? Now, as your heart grows still, we step into the quiet where renewal begins. Like a clay jar set out beneath relentless sun, you wake aware of every crack that yesterday's heat etched into your spirit. You remember the hurried conversations that left words unsaid, the unfinished tasks echoing like hollow chambers, the silent disappointments that siphoned joy drip by drip. Yet before you can rescue yourself, you acknowledge the truth: you are finite. Reservoirs run dry, even the strongest arms tire when dawn is distant. Hear the soft rustle of early breeze threading through the curtains, nature's confession that everything living must pause and receive. You inhale, letting the cool air trace the fissures within, naming each as a space God is willing to fill. Above you, a dove's first coo breaks the hush, its simple note a reminder that empty songbooks can still open when the composer arrives. As the deer longs for streams of water, so your soul pants for God. So Psalm 4:2 when thirst is not failure, it is evidence of belonging to a source beyond yourself. You picture a barren riverbed, stones exposed, cracked earth pleading for rain. Yesterday's demands were those stones, hard and immovable. But today a cloud is forming, barely visible yet pregnant with mercy. You whisper permission for that cloud to break. Let tears fall if they must. They are the first rivulets carving a channel for grace. You do not condemn the emptiness, you consecrate it. In the hush, you hear a gentler question. Will you give me your depletion and allow me to define it as room for abundance? Each heartbeat becomes a silent yes, surrendering unspoken grudges, unresolved anxieties, half-healed memories. You watch them drift like dry leaves upon the water's imaginary surface, carried toward a shore you cannot yet see but trust exists. Now the room brightens slightly, sunrise brushing walls with pale gold. Light reveals dust motes, dancing, humble reminders that even in stillness, particles move, transformation continues. So, too, your unseen renewal has begun. You cup your hands in quiet expectancy, symbolically raising the vessel of your life toward heaven's overflowing cistern. Breathe once more, longer this time, drawing in the certainty that what God pours cannot evaporate. The cracks will not vanish, but they will glisten with living water, declaring to every onlooker that weakness became a window for divine strength. In this moment, you choose patience over panic, waiting over striving, presence over performance, resting in sacred emptiness. You prepare for the sound of streams yet to flow, streams that will soon sing of a fountain deeper than all your need. You step beyond yesterday's brittle silence into a meadow washed in first light, and a hush of expectancy accompanies each footfall toward the hidden spring. Dew sparkles on every blade of grass, tiny prisms forecasting the brilliance still to come. You listen. Beneath the birdsong runs a softer murmur, the sound of subterranean currents pushing upward, eager to greet the dawn. Even before you see the source, you feel its coolness lift the air, brushing your cheeks like a gentle promise. Here, depletion meets abundance. Kneel, letting the rich earth steady your weight, and trace the rim of ancient stone encircling water so clear you can read your own reflection. You notice the fatigue encircling your gaze, but you also see an ember of hope kindled by night's long vigil, now catching flame in sunrise. This pool does not scold your thirst. It celebrates it, rippling as if delighted to receive your parched heart. Whoever drinks the water I give will never thirst. Indeed, it will become in them a spring welling up to eternal life. John 4:1. Christ does not ration mercy. He transforms receivers into conduits of the same unending stream. Lower cupped hands and feel liquid purity spill through your fingers. Soothing, weightless, alive. You drink slowly, allowing the chill to travel down, flushing weariness from hidden corridors of mind and muscle. With every swallow, memories of yesterday's demands begin to dissolve, carried away like silt in a widening river. You sense God's Spirit flowing through cell and sinew, restoring creativity that had dimmed, patience that had frayed, courage that had slipped through unseen cracks. As hydration reaches the deepest crevices, new ideas glint like minnows darting just beneath the surface, inviting discovery. Stay a moment longer. Breathe in aroma of wet soil mingled with wild mint, and recognize it as the scent of beginnings. You realize that the fountain is not only a place, but a person near enough to whisper. Return as often as desire awakens, for my reservoir knows no drought. When you rise, droplets trace your wrists, catching sunlight and scattering tiny rainbows onto the grass. First evidence that renewal never ends with you. It cascades outward. You picture walking back into daily rhythms, carrying invisible streams that will seep into conversations, tasks, and hidden corners of routine. Even mundane errands can be irrigated by grace, turning ordinary ground into fertile fields. You vow to revisit the well whenever fatigue attempts to define you, remembering that dependence is not a flaw, but an avenue for continual filling. Turning toward pathways yet unnamed, you bear no heavy buckets. You carry an inner aquifer flowing in harmony with the fountainhead. Every heartbeat becomes a pulse of water through new channels, promising gardens where yesterday showed only dust. Dawn climbs higher, and you feel wind sweep across the meadow, cool and steady, entering nostrils, tumbling into lungs, unfolding every tight corner of your chest. Each inhale carries unseen vitality, a quiet pledge that today's demands will meet a reserve larger than muscle alone. You stand, eyes closed, tracing the rhythm of respiration. Draw in, release, receive, surrender, until the simple cadence becomes prayer without words. Yesterday's tension unknots vertebra by vertebra as oxygen floods weary sinews, reminding you that vigor is not self-manufactured but gifted with every heartbeat. Like sap rising through an ancient oak, resilience ushers warmth into stiff limbs, and you sense the shift from merely surviving to poised readiness. Because of the Lord's great love, you are not consumed. His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Lamentations 3:22-23. Mercy arrives with sunrise, not as rationed portions, but as an ever-renewed atmosphere. Breathing becomes agreement with grace that never sleeps. Open your eyes to wide fields, bathed in amber light, shadows stretching long yet thinning by the second. Grass bends beneath gusts, then springs upright, illustrating power that looks like flexibility. You notice songbirds lifting from branches, wings beating in unhurried confidence. They trust thermals that you cannot see yet feel brushing your skin. So you practice trust in motion. Roll shoulders, flex fingers, stretch arms skyward, letting simple movement signal to mind that capability has returned. Each gesture is an unspoken thank you, acknowledging source while refusing yesterday's verdict of insufficiency. Where doubts once clung like heavy dew, assurance gathers, glittering across the day's horizon. Now picture your path meetings, chores, conversations, unexpected turns. Visualize them as stepping stones spanning a clear stream fed by the fountain behind you. With every stride, water from that source splashes onto feet, cooling, cleansing, propelling. You need not hoard energy. You travel within current always flowing beneath. If fatigue whispers by afternoon, you will pause again, breathing mercy, letting spirit circulate fresh currents. Strength here is not brute force, but sustained dependence. Confidence that supply will match assignment moment by moment. You gather scattered tools of purpose ideas, waiting in notebooks, kindness reserved for a friend, diligence required for hidden tasks. You lift them. They feel lighter now, as if shared by invisible hands. You remember wings promised in Isaiah's vision, yet you also recall that eagles first spread plumage to catch rising air. So you decide to spread inner wings, cultivate posture, align thought with hope, welcome thermal drafts of holy presence. You promise yourself not to rush, but to glide, letting pace be defined by providence, not pressure. Another breath, deeper than before, seals resolution. Heartbeat echoes whisper, sufficient, sufficient. You step forward not with swagger, but with steady pulse of restored stamina. Should the day present hills, you will climb with cadence tuned to grace. Should it open fertile plains, you will sow seeds generously, knowing increase does not depend on personal reserves alone. Early light settles across shoulders like a mantle, gentle yet weighty with calling, and you move into morning guided by the certainty that every exhale makes room for the next gift of living air. You leave the open meadow and enter a grove where slender trunks rise like columns in a quiet cathedral, their leaves filtering sunshine into moving mosaics upon the ground. A narrow trail meanders ahead, bordered by ferns still glistening with dew, and every footstep sinks softly into loam scented with pine. This way is unfamiliar, yet you sense a gentle order woven through every bend. The hush invites contemplation, the shafts of light mark each stride as intentional. You pause to observe how squirrels choose branches with uncanny accuracy, how spider silk stretches flawlessly between twigs. Creation itself models sure-footed purpose, assuring you that nothing in God's design is random. Your word is a lamp to your feet and a light for your path. Psalm 119:5. Scripture illuminates the next few steps rather than the entire journey, encouraging continual nearness to the giver of direction. Walking by that glow becomes an act of relationship, not mere route. Planning. You breathe the damp woodland air and listen for guidance deeper than intellect. the subtle nudge that feels like wind turning leaves, the inward clarity that arrives without clamor. Songbirds exchange calls above, and you recognize the pattern. One note offered, another replied, a dialogue that maps invisible roots through branches. So you begin your own dialogue. Silent questions rising with each inhale, answers descending like quiet resonance in your chest. Which conversation today requires patience rather than haste? Which project needs boldness instead of caution? You let guidance form not as a blueprint, but as a living melody unfolding in real time. Soon the trail divides at a fork guarded by moss-covered stones. Instinct may pull you right, familiarity left, yet you resist impulsive choice and linger within holy pause. You press fingertips to rough bark, grounding decisions in stillness rather than anxiety. Overhead, light shifts, revealing faint footprints leading toward a clearing barely visible beyond brush. You sense that the wiser course is rarely the most obvious. It is the route where peace, though quiet, feels unmistakably anchored. You turn toward that subtle clearing, trusting that the one who knows tomorrow has already walked ahead, scattering breadcrumbs of assurance for you to find. As you move, you notice markers, a fallen birch forming a natural bridge across a trickling stream, a cluster of wildflowers blooming precisely where path and water meet. Each sign whispers of providence, bridges prepared before you reach obstacles, beauty stationed at intersections to remind you that duty and delight can coexist. Where the ground slopes upward, you lean forward, matching breath to rhythm of incline, discovering that effort aligned with divine wisdom cultivates endurance, not exhaustion. Where the way descends, you release control, allowing gravity and grace to guide without fear of stumbling. Mid-journey, clouds momentarily veil the sun, dimming the forest. Yet even in muted light, the earlier lamp of promise remains within memory, and you recall its glow as if still shining upon your steps. Guidance is not revoked by passing shadow, it merely invites closer attentiveness. You slow, palms open, ready to pivot if a whisper redirects. Moments later, breeze parts the canopy, sunlight returns, and you resume with renewed certainty that darkness can serve as invitation to listen. Emerging from trees, you glimpse the horizon, fields where tasks await, communities where relationships unfold, streets where strangers will cross your path. You carry no map rolled under your arm, only the inner lamp that brightens with each act of trust. You resolve to begin every encounter with a breath of listening, confident that wisdom planted in morning stillness will sprout in midday business. Paths may twist, yet light remains straight. Uncertainties may rise, yet voice remains steady. With steps attuned to that cadence, you enter the day neither fearful nor reckless, but calmly bold, assured that wherever you tread, the guide walks alongside. Turning ordinary ground into sacred pilgrimage, you step from forest shade into sunlight that spreads across rolling fields, and warmth sparks an instinctive smile. Renewal no longer feels private, it brims like spring rain searching for furrows to fill. You pause to watch golden grain sway in unison, each stalk absorbing light, then bending low to kiss the earth. A quiet choreography of receiving and returning. The sight reminds you that gratitude, like grain, multiplies when shared. A breeze gathers, carrying the scent of wild honeysuckle, and you inhale sweetness that no hand cultivated. a gift freely offered to any passerby. Something within echoes, freely you have received, freely give, and thanksgiving rises, unforced. Expanding ribcage, quickening pulse. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. 1 Thessalonians 5 and 7. Gratitude is not a reaction to comfort, but a lens that discovers blessing hidden even within challenge. Consider the people awaiting your presence, co-workers weighed by deadlines, a neighbor nursing quiet sorrow, a child hungry for a listening ear. Visualize gratitude flowing through you toward them like irrigation channels branching from a river. You need not manufacture grand gestures. A sincere word, a patient pause, a shared laugh becomes life-giving water. You recall moments when a single sentence uplifted your own spirit, and you resolve to scatter such seeds generously, trusting unseen roots to form beneath. Kneeling, you let fingertips brush the earth, acknowledging that every harvest begins with buried kernels unseen by spectators yet celebrated by heaven. A lark bursts upward, trilling above. Its song arcs, then drifts down like invisible petals landing gently upon your shoulders. Each note feels like a benediction, and you respond with whispered praise for breath, vision, heartbeat, second chances. Yesterday's drains fade further, replaced by awareness that abundance is measured not by hoarded reserves, but by willingness to release. You recall adversity that once felt insurmountable, now transformed into testimony. Proof that fountains can spring from rock. Gratitude remembers wounds yet interprets them as places where light entered, turning scars into stories of rescue. Another verse surfaces in memory. Every good and perfect gift is from above. James 1:17. Recognition of divine generosity unlocks freedom from comparison, forging contentment that stands guard over joy. You sense envy loosen its grip, replaced by quiet celebration of others' victories. The field before you teems with diverse blooms, poppies blazing red, daisies cheerful white, lavender swaying purple, each unique yet all nourished by the same unseen aquifer. Likewise, you determine to bless differing talents around you, speaking honor that waters communities into vibrant mosaic. You reach into pocket for a small notebook, jotting 3 names that surface during this reflection. Beside each, you record a simple act. Call, note, silent prayer. Then close the cover, sealing intention with gentle pressure. Gratitude gains momentum through unexpressed thanks withers like cut flowers left in dry air. Rising, you feel sunlight hotter now, signaling the day's advance. You spread arms briefly, shadow stretching long across the grain, and imagine that silhouette as a river delta, many tributaries branching outward. Wherever your steps fall, praise will leave traces, subtle yet enduring, guiding others back to the fountain you discovered at dawn. Before moving on, you lift face skyward, murmuring final acknowledgement for guidance in woodland turns, for strength renewed by breath, for fountains unceasing, and for the privilege of becoming a vessel that overflows. The words drift upward, but the posture remains within, shoulders set, heart open, hands ready. With renewed pace, you begin walking toward distant village roofs, just visible beyond the rise, carrying invisible pitchers brimming with peace, prepared to tip them into every thirsty moment that greets you. The village comes alive as you crest the final hill, rooftops catching sun like polished brass, chimneys lifting ribbons of early smoke, streets beginning their slow hum of carts, footsteps, morning chatter. You pause at the overlook, realizing how the journey from hollow dusk to filled dawn has forged in you a quiet brilliance. Less a spotlight, more a lantern carried through dim corridors, steady, dependable. The renewal you received now seeks release, eager to thread its glow through workplaces, cafes, classrooms, hospital corridors, grocery aisles, wherever the ordinary day unfolds. You take first steps down the slope, and children's laughter rings out from a courtyard, bright and untamed. A dog trots by, tail waving like a banner of unself-conscious joy. You feel something rise within, a gentle urgency to mirror that lightness, to let your very presence ease anxieties you will never fully know. Renewal becomes tangible in the warmth of your greeting, the steadiness of your gaze, the patience seeded in each reply. Passing a baker's stall, you breathe aroma of fresh bread, and remember how nourishment tasted beside the meadow spring. You offer a word of thanks to the baker, noticing surprise in her eyes at being seen before being served. A simple "good morning" lands like balm. Soon you reach the town square, where a fountain splashes clear water into stone basins. You sense parallel symbolism. What filled you now overflows, available to any whose path intersects yours. A tired commuter sits on the edge, shoulders curved inward, coffee cooling at his feet. You feel a nudge pause. You speak a brief kindness about the sunrise's beauty, and his guarded posture loosens as he turns to witness color still clinging to clouds. In that shared silence, heaven's palette becomes conversation, and exhaustion softens into possibility. Across the plaza, market vendors arrange produce in neat pyramids. You stroll through aisles, greeting each with authentic interest. Onions glinting purple, oranges glowing like miniature suns, parsley sparkling with dew. Every transaction is practiced generosity. You pay fair price, but more importantly, you trade encouragement for grateful smiles. Renewal circulates, giver and receiver exchange invisible currency of hope. You realize that radiant witness requires no stage, only mindful presence, no megaphone, only attentiveness, no grand miracle. Only a heart aligned with continual source. Mid-morning brings inevitable challenges. An impatient driver honks. A co-worker sends an urgent error-ridden file. A stranger frowns at your slow pace. Yet you respond not with stored frustration, but with the surplus harvested at dawn. Calm tone, corrective action, soft apology where needed. Each interaction is a candled window in a dark hallway. Enough of those windows, and the corridor transforms. You observe that people begin adjusting to your tempo, voices lowering, shoulders descending, solutions emerging rather than complaints. Without announcing faith, you embody refuge. Without preaching renewal, you model it. By afternoon, you rest briefly on a bench beneath flowering trees, petals drifting like confetti for unseen celebration. You reflect on the circuit from empty vessel to living fountain, from fresh strength to steady guidance, gratitude, and now outward radiance. You marvel that the cycle is both completed and beginning again. Tonight you will tire, tomorrow you will thirst, but the fountain remains. You close eyes, inhale the delicate perfume of blossoms, and commit to return at dawn, knowing the world's shadows will forever need light kindled in surrendered hearts. Rising, you continue forward, lantern steady, steps sure, confident that wherever you go, renewal travels beside, within, and beyond you, an unspoken benediction over every corner of today's world. Pause for a final breath, noticing how your chest lifts, how air shimmers with promise. Recall the meadow's spring, the woodland's lamp, the field's harvest of gratitude, and the town now brightened by simple kindness. Let these images anchor you whenever fatigue or doubt reappears. Whisper, I carry living water, I walk by sacred light, I pour quiet joy. Feel resolve settle, gentle yet unbreakable. Now, choose one act that will pass this renewal onward. A call, a prayer, a listening ear. Hold the intention, let it root, and step into the day's unfolding story.